So, good morning, everybody, and please take your seats. We are starting our works. Can we therefore kick start the streaming online broadcast? Okay, if the technicians can kindly confirm if we are ready to start. Okay. So, thank you so much for being here. I'm Maria Sunta Pecci, and I'm the director for UNESCO office at the Ministry of Culture and for International Relations, and I'm really glad to welcome you here. It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you in this day, launching the program for sensibilization on the training and safeguard of the intangible heritage in Italy. I'm extremely proud of conveying to you the greetings of the Secretary General, Mario Tritacat, who is not with us today for previous engagements. I would also like to welcome and greet for his continuous support Honorable Gianmarco Mazzi, State Under Secretary for the Ministry of Culture. I would also like to thank and welcome with a great pleasure also Ana Luisa Thompson Flores, the UNESCO Director and Regional Office for Science and Culture in Europe and the Liaison Office in Geneva. I would also like to welcome Honorable Federico Molicone, President of the Commission for Culture, the Chamber of Deputies. I would also like to welcome Paola Andrea Bartorelli, head of the 6th Office for UNESCO and International Organization at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And also welcome to Giuseppe Ambrosio, advisor to the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Sovereignty. And in a while, we will also have a web connection with Tinga Curtis, UNESCO Head Section for Living Heritage and Secretary for the Convention on the Safeguard of Intangible Heritage. First of all, I would like to thank, first and foremost, the representatives of the National Observatory for the Safeguard of the Intangible Heritage. This is an extremely important event included within the activities of the observatory, which is strongly represented here, represented by the institutions, which is composed of, and I would also like to thank the representatives of all the elements which are listed in the list of intangible heritage of UNESCO. You are those who have the real responsibility, along with the state, to protect and defend these precious goods representing our identity and our roots. I would also like to thank the head office, the legislative head office, Antonio Tarasco, Sergio Marchi, head of the technical secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, Mr. Stefano Michelangelo from Carabinieri, and the special nucleus for restoring cultural goods. This is the day for launching this new program, which will have a set of other events, 15 events, which are to be held. It's a project on which we have been working along with the UNESCO Venice, and I'm really proud for this cooperation, and would also like to thank the office to through Mrs. Sinibaldi and Matteo Sinibaldi of UNESCO Venice. I would like to thank them because we have gone through a path along together which could pave the way for the future of our cultural heritage. Now I will give the floor to State Under Secretary Honorable Gianmarco Mazzi from the Ministry of Culture. I will stand up. So, thank you so much. Thank you, Mrs. Pecci, for this great introduction. And good morning and welcome to this great event. It's a great event involving UNESCO, which we would like to thank. First of all, UNESCO paved the way for the history which was dedicated by the international community by pointing out the importance of culture for a sustainable development for people. So thanks to the UNESCO director, Annalisa Masseo Thompson Flores, who is attending here today, we can represent the importance of this agreement with Italy in the wake of safeguarding and protecting the cultural heritage. We're talking about heritage because we are tackling all the several cultures living in the world by sharing memories, practices, histories, millennium of histories, featuring all the identities, thus enabling them to have a proper dialogue. So today we are celebrating the 20th anniversary on the of the Convention for the Protection of the Intangible Heritage, and this is why we are launching this program with the aim of underlining that this heritage belongs to everyone, and also working on the mandate given entrusted to us by the UNESCO, and working along with other institutions, universities, and professionals, and all those who live surrounded by a collective cultural heritage, despite not being fully aware of that. So let's work closely together. I also would like to thank the Secretariat of the Convention and Secretary Tim Curtis and the Regional Office for Science and Culture in Europe. Thank you so much for your engagement and for the success achieved during the recent years. Also, thanks to the administrations who are attending this event and the heritage communities going with us along this journey, trying to acknowledging the dignity of all peoples and cultures all over the world. In traditions, practices, habits, even if not written down, history is laying down, and also our main wisdom lies there. Just think about the variety and the richness of over 600 elements recognized by UNESCO. The National Observatory for the Recognition of the Intangible Heritage of UNESCO is gathered in this hall. So I'm fully convinced that, and I want to say that with a great pride, that I'm attending this great initiative by which we will launch this first program to sensitize and train regarding the safeguard of the intangible heritage of the world. It's extremely important in order to convey knowledge and wisdom to new generations, to the youth. It's an important step ahead in order to guarantee the vitality of our heritage, which are public, universal, and intimate ones, because they are connected to the individual identity and to his well-being within its society. So thank you so much. Have a nice day. Thank you, Honorable Undersecretary. Thank you for your nice words and for this great attention towards the cultural heritage, not just the national heritage, but also the international one. And now I would like to give the floor to Ana Louise Thompson Flores. Good morning. Undersecretary Mazzi, Director Pecci, distinguished representatives of the authorities attending this event, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to open this working day by presenting the first program for the sensitizing and training on the safeguards of the intangible heritage in Italy. In this marvelous hall, bearing the name of Giovanni Spadolini. I first of all would like to thank the Ministry for Culture for the fruitful and solid cooperation and the trust given to UNESCO and to our office, the Regional Office for Science and Culture in Europe, in arranging this day and the activities which will follow from there on. I would like to thank them for their work. So this program is to be included within the activities mapped and detected by the National Observatory on the Intangible Heritage of UNESCO to promote the implementation of the Convention of the year 2003, for which we are celebrating the 20th anniversary this year. So in my short speech, in my short opening remarks, I will try to underline the main goals and the main frameworks. Capacity building
As such, one of the priorities for implementing the 2003 Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage is its Global Capacity Building Program. The program was put in place to support countries in safeguarding their intangible cultural heritage while promoting broad public knowledge and support for the Convention. The 2003 Convention places communities at the center of the safeguarding activities. Accordingly, the capacity building program takes an inclusive approach to ensure the widest possible participation of all relevant stakeholders in the design and implementation of safeguarding activities. The specific program for Italy is designed and developed as an integral part of our broader capacity building action. The delivery will rely on the support of Vanessa Achille and Benedetta Ubertazzi, distinguished members of UNESCO's global network of facilitators, a network of experts in the field of intangible cultural heritage. Through this program, UNESCO and the Ministry of Culture aim to raise awareness, advance knowledge, and develop skills of relevant actors while improving networking and cooperation at country level. The course is primarily addressed to the communities involved, with the Italian elements inscribed on the UNESCO list of intangible cultural heritage and the Register of Good Safeguarding Practices, as well as to staff from relevant institutions, civil society organizations, researchers, and other practitioners in the field of living heritage. Allow me to express my most sincere appreciation for Italy's outstanding record in the protection of cultural heritage, which is widely recognized in the international level, as well for its unfaltering support to UNESCO. This includes the fundamental support to the UNESCO Regional Bureau for Science and Culture in Europe, based in Venice, whose mandate is to advance the implementation of UNESCO's programs with a focus on Southeast Europe and part of the Mediterranean. Italy is not only the Regional Bureau's host country, but a strategic partner in the fulfillment of our mandate, which combines specialized expertise on science and culture with a strong interdisciplinary approach, also spanning education and other sectors. Il patrimonio culturale immateriale che qualcuno ha...
Cultural heritage, which evolves around the intangible heritage, defines the heritage as a whole. It's a corpus of values, practices, knowledges, and wisdoms, playing a crucial role in linking together our past to our present and our future on this earth. It's an heritage twinning our relations with the others and linked to the environment we are living in, just reflecting the cultural diversities of our planet, thus translating into precious resources to develop our adaptation abilities, sustainability abilities facing global challenges. I therefore wish that this day will play its part in promoting the ethical and the conceptual principles supporting this heritage, while also increasing the capabilities for safeguarding it as a whole. We can do our part for sure. I thank you so much for your presence, and I wish you a great day ahead. Thank you, Annalisa, for your kind words, talking about twinning, linking, safeguarding this ability of connecting all together institutions. So there's a shared responsibility shared among several stakeholders, because you see, a good, an heritage is not just for one person only, it belongs to everyone. So thank you for these nice words. So I would like to invite here on the table Mr. Prosperi, head of the Secretary Honorable Molicani, President for the Culture Commission from the Chamber of Deputies, conveying his greetings. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Patch. Unfortunately, Honorable Molicone can't be here because unfortunately is an international meeting in Paris in an exchange between Louvre Museum and Capo di Monte Museum. So thank you for the invitation anyhow. We have prepared a short message with some guidelines, which I will read now. The growing globalization is imposing new types of preserving international communities worldwide. What modifies the perspectives and which will move an important step ahead lays in the goal of safeguarding this heritage as enacted by this convention. Safeguard is a complex concept which is also linked to traditional concept of protection, enhancement, and assessment, which also belongs to Italian political guidelines, talking about the protection of the from the legal point of view of our heritage. We have a lot of initiatives, but still in the regional initiatives we see that there are a few initiatives taken at the regional level, and only a few regions have articulated and dynamic programs for enhancing the heritage, and some pioneer regions like Sicily, Lombardy, and Veneto are lagging behind, working on initiatives aimed at the protection of this international on this heritage as envisaged by the Convention of 2003. On this, we will have to work in order to enhance properly this heritage. The success of this convention strongly changed the way of living, so transferring cultures and cultural approach to life. So the protection of biodiversity, diversity of cultures, diversity of histories and technologies. Not just culture, but cultures in its plural form. So today we are here because Italy and its beauties are not just represented by its monuments and landscapes, but they are made by a lot of other things. We have increased the budget for the historical education and training in order to enhance and increase the knowledge of our heritage. So we have to approach cultures in its broadest sense and putting together a lot of factors which are able to create also new employment opportunities. And I thank you so much for this invitation, and I wish you a great day ahead. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Prosperi. So please convey our best greetings to President Molicone. Thank you so much for your intervention. So I have the pleasure to leave the floor to Palandra Bartorelli, head of the 6th office for Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Please, Palandra. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I would like to thank State Under Secretary Mazzi for his nice words and for this wonderful whole, which highlights how important UNESCO is for Italy and vice versa. Thank you, Mrs. Pecci, and thank you, Mrs. Luisa Thompson-Flores. I have to say that we are a great team supporting UNESCO and supporting the Italian work in Paris. It's extremely important to bring in this whole what we are doing abroad. So you are those who implement on the territory the Convention of 2003. So this is great, and we are really proud of how Italy is able to manage both the material heritage and the intangible heritage. It's also important to export it outside. It's also important that in Paris they will all understand that Italy is the leader in protecting and safeguarding these sites and these beauties that Italy has, but that we have sometimes we forget we have, and when these beauties are included in a UNESCO list with a lot of activities evolving about that, around that, And then part of our sovereignty is thus delegated to Paris, unfortunately, in a way. But in daily life, sometimes we find some disagreements with laws and regulations sometimes, but still each of you have an important task in interpreting and in implementing in real life in concrete terms according to the local habits. And we're talking about the elements listed in the Convention of 2003, we have to consider that we are all different, and you all have a creativity margin which changes based also on your patient interests and all different degrees of capability in protecting these elements. I have to say that in Paris we feel a bit less than here, that this division between heritage, cultural, material and intangible heritage. So this is important to be highlighted, but still we should consider maybe a possibility of not merging these two conventions, but maybe finding a kind of synergy between these two conventions in order to treat them equally, also considering that for all the rest of the world, which is going beyond Europe, and considering the criteria of listing these goods in the intangible heritage, well, for all of them, the tangible heritage is the most important one. But for us, we have to say that we really care for both. Sometimes in the other parts of the world, they feel that the tangible heritage is the one they really rely on, but still Italy is working a lot in order to collect the opinions, the ideas coming from all other countries in order to be able to properly enhance the importance of the Convention of 2003, because since it's impossible sometimes to list some goods, and in the list, sometimes it's not possible to properly protect them all, but Italy is working hard to treat them equally. We have over 1,000 goods inscribed in this intangible heritage, and we have something like that also in the tangible list of tangible goods, but still these figures will change. The importance of the intangible heritage is changing now, because still this is exactly what people are looking for, what tourists are looking for, high quality tourists, because these tourists are seeking for culture wherever they go. Well, we have to work on this part of the heritage. This is why we are working with a great enthusiasm in Paris on these points. We will have a great event in Naples with UNESCO on the 27th and 28th of November, focusing on the direction of these two conventions and how to bridge the gap between these two conventions in order to better enhance the protection of the heritage as a whole, be it tangible or intangible. Of course, we chose Naples because Naples represents the daily combination of these two heritages. So in a way, Naples is able to overcome this distinction between two different conventions, two different heritages, but maybe a distinction which is about to disappear for the future. So I would like to also to thank you on behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and have a nice day ahead. Thank you, Mr. Bartorelli. Thank you for underlining this aspect of the continuous dialogue between tangible and intangible heritage. We have to work on both of them, and on this earth we have this great heritage for which we are working on a daily basis, and we have to protect it. Now I will give the floor to Mr. Giuseppe Ambrosio, advisor of the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Sovereignty. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mrs. Fecci, Honorable Undersecretary. And let me say, it's extremely important to work on this program envisaged by the observatory, which is coordinating this program indeed through Mrs. Pecci. It's also important because in the intangible heritage, the Ministry of Culture is in the forefront, of course, because it's our ministry in Italy working along with the observatory and working also outside the observatory and with all the institutions and the relevant bodies in order to promote the intangible Italian heritage, which is immense, huge, really. It's boundless. And thank you, Honorable Mazzi, for the work carried out in these last few months and for interpreting the guidelines given by Minister San Giuliano, Minister for Agriculture, Lollobrigida, guidelines aimed at supporting the works of the observatory so that we could reach a better synergy between both ministries after 20 years for the launch of this convention and 10 years after the ratification by Italy of the same convention. I would like to remind you that Italy was just once a member of the Committee for the Intangible Heritage just in the year 2008 until the year 2011. So in the next few months, we will have two vacancies. Therefore, we have to consider that, and Italy could be a candidate really for the protection of this intangible world heritage. We have a lot of elements in the list of the intangible heritage, as Councillor Bartorelli said. So it would be interesting for Italy to be candidate, so to entrust to an Italian representative to cover this vacancy and to rule the processes from within. So, touching the core issues we are talking about today, and also from the perspective of the Ministry of Agriculture, working along with the Ministry of Culture for sure, well, we have played a crucial role in updating the concept of intangible heritage. The inscription of a Mediterranean diet in the year 2010 enlarged the scenario of the intangible heritage, the intangible cultural heritage, opening also to food practices. These inscriptions also followed by other inscriptions by other members like the Pupi and the Canto Sardo, which were already there, being the proofs of masterpieces of the oral tradition in Italy. In Italy, we have also another record, maybe. We have enlarged the concept of intangible cultural heritage, thus involving farming practices, so that in the year 2014, we have reached the inscription of the vineyard practices, the cropping practices for vineyards, which are mainly implemented in the southern part of Italy, in Sicily. We reached the inscription in the UNESCO heritage list. This is extremely important because, see, the intangible cultural heritage can now be up to 1/3 of the intangible heritage of the worldwide, also involving food and agricultural issues, which is a great result for us. Also, considering that we are talking about culture involving agriculture and agri-food practices, which is extremely important from our point of view. It was extremely important because these activities starting from the Ministry of Culture and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so an Italian stakeholders playing the role of the president of the expertise for the convention, the evaluation body. I'm talking about the evaluation body. And in a way, the role played by Italy was extremely important because we strongly supported the update of the operational guidelines. And as you may already know that we have a section which is dedicated to food safety and the protection of environment and biodiversity also. But considering that we are talking about a sensitizing program and training program on the protection of the intangible cultural heritage, I would like to just give you a few suggestions, and we will maybe work with Mrs. Pecci along with the observatory, of course. What can we do in the future? So we could strengthen the link with the communities, because it's extremely important, and those who are in this hall and who are coming from these communities, they perfectly know that they are ambassadors of the food and agri-food culture in the world, ambassadors for the communities they are representing here today. So focusing on the importance, increasing the importance of national inventories, setting up a list at the national level, kept, of course, at the Ministry of Culture, and also strengthening the role played by regions, municipalities, and all the relevant bodies working at the local level, of course, also including Proloco and others, because they are an important presidium on the field for spreading that intangible Italian culture, which is, let me say that, which is one of the strengths of our country, but also representing Italy all over the world. So thank you so much.
Grazie molte consigliere per le sue parole e per il lavoro che abbiamo fatto insieme e che ci aspetta per il futuro e la salvaguardia dei nostri preziosi elementi. Lei ha anticipato quello che avrei voluto dire introducendo il lavoro. È qui con noi il già presidente dell'organo consultivo, il professor Petrillo, che saluto, adesso non riesco a intercettarlo, eccolo, grazie per essere qui con noi, e vedo in sala e lo ringrazio per la sua presenza, Pecorario Scanio, grazie davvero, ci onora averla qui e grazie per tutto il lavoro che lei ha fatto e continua a fare per la salvaguardia. E adesso abbiamo finito la prima parte dei saluti istituzionali, ringrazio ancora l'onorevole Mazzi, davvero grazie per la sua presenza e per il continuo supporto, grazie ad Annalise, grazie al direttore Bartorelli e grazie al consigliere Ambrosio. Ah, è vero. Grazie, scusate, ho fatto una cosa, avevo saltato una cosa preziosissima. Adesso ci sarà infatti il video di Tim Curtis, UNESCO, capo della sezione per il patrimonio vivente e segretariato della Convenzione sulla salvaguardia del patrimonio culturale immateriale. Ci ha inviato un videomessaggio di cui noi siamo veramente onorati e felici. Prego la regia di mandare in onda il filmato, mi scuso.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, partners, friends, greetings from UNESCO and from the Living Heritage entity, and good day to you all. My name is Tim Curtis, and I'm the secretary of the 2003 Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage. And it's a pleasure to be addressing you today at the launch of the Capacity Building Program for Safeguarding Intangible Cultural Heritage in Italy. I'd like to start by thanking, of course, the Ministry of Culture for the kind invitation to make some of these opening remarks and for your generous support and cooperation in the launch of this important program, which is carried out also with the UNESCO office in Venice. Italy is, of course, an active member of our convention, with the 17 elements on the list and register of the convention, and your communities and custodians have nominated a wide range of elements, many of which are well known across Europe and the world. And this, of course, exemplifies the vibrancy and diversity of cultural elements in Italy, and you can be justifiably proud of your efforts in safeguarding and promoting them. The launch of this program, of course, comes at a high point for Italy's participation in the convention. It is the first of this kind in Italy and will advance the knowledge and skills of communities and bearers of living heritage across the country, so as to better help them safeguard their heritage for generations to come. It is, of course, also part of UNESCO's Global Capacity-building Program for the Safeguarding of Living Heritage, which means you will be able to draw upon some of the best practices from across our global network. As you might know, this year marks the 20th anniversary of our convention, and on this celebratory occasion, it's a good time to reflect on the principles that have underpinned our success. And I'd like to speak a little on what makes this convention special and how this program can help achieve our mutual aims. What makes our convention distinctive is our emphasis on communities as the bearers and custodians who safeguard their own living heritage. When nominations are prepared for the lists and the register of the convention, the involvement of community spans the entire process, both in the nomination process as well as in the preparation and implementation of the related safeguarding programs. In emphasizing the role of communities, the convention represents a spirit of inclusivity, dynamism, and open-endedness. And in that way, the list and the register are intended to demonstrate the diversity and viability of living heritage in our world in general, rather than really to confer ownership, value, importance to any specific individual, group, or state. It's a ground-up convention that focuses on communities as one of the main actors, and that it is they who play a central and dynamic role in its implementation. So this is why we are happy to be launching this capacity building program today. And together with the Ministry of Culture, we want to empower communities with the knowledge and principles of the 2003 Convention and share best practices in safeguarding efforts so that the vibrancy of living heritage in Italy can continue. The program is also a reflection of our focus for the convention in the coming years by strengthening the linkages between education, youth, and living heritage. Of course, Italy has contributed immensely to the success of this convention, and through this program, I hope will empower further generations of communities to do so that your country and your communities can share many more elements and best practices with the international community. So I count on your support to make 2023 a year of celebration for living heritage, which demonstrates the values and principles of our convention. Without further ado, I'd like to again thank the Ministry of Culture for your kind support and cooperation, and wish all of you an enriching experience in this program.
Siamo molto lieti del contributo.
We're really happy for the contribution of the Secretariat Convention 2003, Team Curtis. It's always an opportunity having the possibility to work together and to be together during the different challenges, considering that also the exchange we have is always helpful. Now we continue with the second part of this work. I want to leave the floor and the moderation to Mr. Matteo Rosati, and I want to thank you all for this first part that we had together. Thank you.
Prego, Matteo.
Buongiorno.
Good morning, everyone. I guess we can begin with the second session. But of course, I want to thank the other institutional representatives, all the speakers that introduced us during the opening session. Thank you for your words, because they gave us some inspiration and guidance. Let's begin with the second part of the program. That is the most important part, because we're going to present in details this program for the awareness and formation we are going to present today for the first time. So we're going to work on it during the second part of the year with different virtual meetings. So it's going to be really helpful, and it's going to have different elements in it. And two people are going to introduce it in particular, and they're going to take care directly of the starting of the program, so they're going to be there for the practice. I want to introduce the speakers of this second session with Mrs. Elena Sinibaldi, representative for the Convention of Safeguarding of the Safeguard of the National Cultural Heritage for the Ministry of Culture, Mrs. Vanessa Killis and Mrs. Benedetto Bertazzi, the coordinators of the program that today we're going to introduce, and they are part of the global network of facilitators for the safeguard of the intangible heritage that is coordinated by UNESCO. Then we have the pleasure to have Mrs. Massimo Alesi and Mr. Stefano Pisani with the National Observatory for the Intangible Heritage, UNESCO, in Italy. So I want to invite Mrs. Sinibaldi to take the floor. Thank you, Matteo, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you also to the people that are with us remotely. I want to thank the speakers that have talked before us, and their interventions were really important, because they also showed that the institutions are there. And as said before, talking about the intangible cultural heritage is talking about the plurality. This plurality in the history of humanity, of the disciplines and the social sciences, wasn't something not important. It was something we gained from the history, with the conversations, with the different cultures meeting, and also this gave us the opportunity to begin with this new vision, with the term culture and heritage, embracing plurality and the different cultures. So it's important to say that talking about UNESCO and its mission, the main one, that is highly represented here, it's important for us to remember that Levi-Strauss, that for us was an important anthropologist for the discipline and also for the anthropology. It was one of the main co-authors of the Manifesto of UNESCO. And in 1952, it was the one that started to give us and to create the different vision of culture in the international community, a more respectful vision, aware of the different contexts, and also including the dignity of the different populations and cultures. In 1982, only, the first mean is created, international one, the first recommendation for safeguarding the folklore. Then, after years, we arrived to 2003 and to the Convention of UNESCO that is ratified. And this is a turning point, the turning point of this history that it's not only something that includes humanity, but also the social sciences, also the commitment, the social commitment that includes us all. Of course, we've been talking about co-responsibility during the last years as Ministry of Culture, and also with anthropologists, cultural anthropologists, we were called to intervene in this new context of culture, of course, also of the intangible heritage. And we tried to bring our experience, our discipline, our skills in the field. And we want to also to encourage a different vision, a different method, and also a vision that could include also the institutional practices closer to the technical approach and scientific approach. And in this action of co-responsibility, we have the summary of the importance of our roles. We're talking about sharing, we're talking about recognizing the others, and this happens also thanks to this plurality, and this includes us all, as it was said before. So we're talking about our systemic action, we're talking about creativity and passion, as Councillor Bertorelli was saying before. These elements that are fundamental when we talk about the field, and we try to give our contributions to the system in the country, and to make sure also that our Italian culture can contribute in the different intangible heritage in the world. We're going to talk about interdependent cultures. We're going to talk about our heritage, but also about differences in the cultures. And we know that when we are there with the territories and the communities, and then also thanks to the support of the international community, and I'm really honored to be part of it, we are there in the process, and we are there for this part of lives, and we make sure that these flames can take a particular form, they can get their own colors, and they can express themselves. And of course, they need to be able to enter the world, to create a contact with the world. And I must say that we did a lot lately. We know that we have to do some more. And the convention, of course, encourages us to look at different nationalities, the capability to safeguard the elements, but also we want to bring other elements in it. So learning by our heritage means also being able to talk about the heritage that includes us. This is a particular moment in our history, also considering the fact that we are talking about different public policies and cultural policies. Of course, considering the different diplomacies that are fundamental, and they are getting always more structured. And I want to say that today is an important moment because it's the first time that after some years we find all the people we've been working with, the people we've been creating this dream, this mission, and this path, and all the elements involved in this 10-year path. I think that all these elements were worth it. I want to thank you for your experience. I want to thank also your life experience in particular, because you know it, that we've been working with a lot of memories, with a lot of commitment, and we created these great moments together. And we also celebrated together the main moments we had. And this emotion we had in the past is the same one we have when our Ministry of Foreign Affairs has great results. So my contribution and my greeting goes to the colleagues, Mr. Matteo Rosati. I want to thank you because during these 10 years, we've been creating together a lot. I want to thank also Mrs. Vanessa Chili and Mr. Benedetto Bertazzi because your skills and professionalism made possible to communicate coming from different point of views, and also your contribution. I say this because your contribution comes from different experience, international experience you had. I want to thank UNESCO, also the institutions and the communities. And the invitation I want to express today is to keep on remembering that emotion and those feelings we have when we recognize an heritage. And this heritage is a heritage of joy, sharing, responsibility. And as someone was saying, it's also a public heritage because only being public it can be alive. And this is the intangible heritage. So I want to thank you, and I leave the floor to you, Matteo. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you, Elena, for your words. I appreciate them. And I want to say that we as UNESCO, we are really honored to be here, and also we're really honored for the fact that you gave us the coordination of the program that we're doing in cooperation. I want to thank the participants that are with us today, but I want to thank also the people that are not physically with us, so people remote, because there's a great participation, and we really wish that this attention is going to be confirmed in the future too, because the path is long. Now we're going to introduce the program, and Vanessa is going to be the first one, Vanessa Achilles, and she's going to introduce also the framework, the starting framework. So she's going to highlight the main principles of the convention, and then we're going to see the details of the awareness program.
Good morning, everyone. This is a really great honor to be here today with you. I am extremely sorry to be able to address you only in English. I do hope that what I will share with you will pass on anyway, despite this language. And really, I would like to thank everyone among the organizers, Ministry of Culture and UNESCO, for giving us the opportunity to be here. And when I see the list of speakers and participants and the diversity here, I see that this diversity is already reflected broadly, and that we are sharing common motives, common objectives here. And this is a wonderful start for this kind of ambitious program. Okay, so maybe before we start, we can briefly introduce ourselves. And so my name is Vanessa Achilles. I am French by birth. I have lived for many, many years in Asia Pacific, where I was working in the UNESCO program and specifically coordinating activities on the 2003 convention. Since I left Asia Pacific, I still work with UNESCO a lot, and especially on programs related to how to bring ICH in schools. We have developed a methodology and done a lot of training on that, and this is something that we hope to discuss during the training.
Sì, io sono Benedetta Ubertazzi, non aggiungo niente di...
Benedetta Ubertazzi, I don't want to say anything else, but I'm a lawyer and professor in the University Bicocca in Milan, and also facilitator. So I'm really happy because you may understand it. We
che vengono ad integrarsi con Vanessa.
We have different skills, so we want Vanessa, we can do it in a good way, and I really hope that this program is going to be helpful for you and also for the communities.
Scorrere.
Scusatemi. Questo programma si baserà sulla tecnologia, quindi spero davvero che riusciremo anche a risolvere questi tipi di problemi. Questa presentazione sarà divisa in 6 parti principali, lo potete vedere nello schermo. E Benedetta e io condivideremo le informazioni su ogni contenuto, ogni concetto della convenzione stessa, gli attori coinvolti, i ruoli, e ne abbiamo un po' parlato, e i processi di nonima, e dopodiché PC in situazioni emergenziali e il capacity building. Ovviamente abbiamo avuto poco tempo. Poco tempo, quindi questa è una presentazione della convenzione, ma speriamo ovviamente che ci vengano poi discussi in dettaglio durante il programma Capacity Building. Bene, ora funziona. Questo programma è sviluppato e strutturato intorno alla Convenzione del 2003 per la salvaguardia del patrimonio culturale immateriale. Quindi iniziamo
concept down and looking at the key ideas here one by one, starting with intangible cultural heritage. So in this presentation and further on in the capacity program, we may use interchangeably the terminology intangible cultural heritage or ICH or living heritage, which are used within the Secretariat of the Convention regularly. And the definition that is given says that ICH includes the practice, representation, expression, knowledge, and skills, which is the intangible part, and also the associated instrument, object, artifact, and cultural spaces. So more tangible tangible parts which are supporting the intangible expression. So these objects are not safeguarded and protected in themselves, but basically as tools or as results of the process. That communities recognize as part of their cultural heritage. So here the concept of communities starts already to appear very central. ICH is transmitted from generation to generation. In the idea of transmission, we have the idea that there is viability, that the practice is continuing. So it is living heritage, the other terminology, because it is practiced today, because it has been transmitted. And it is constantly recreated in response of a changing environment. And this is a very important concept that can sometimes be misunderstood because we have a tendency, especially people who are very familiar with the concept of world heritage, to try to have ownership in one aspect, in one site, or to see a notion of authenticity. This is the real site. Whereas when we are talking about ICH, this ICH can evolve as defined by the community. It can change. So there is not a real way to practice or a real way to do music. This music, if the community wishes so, can change. What remains is that this practice, in all its form over time, provides community with a sense of identity and continuity. It is what created this feeling and this meaning. And we have talked already a lot in all the introduction speeches about this idea of identity. And there we got to the next key concept that has emerged from the original speech. The purpose is to keep promoting respect for cultural diversity and human creativity, meaning that we all have various forms of a living heritage that we practice, that we show, that we share. All these are equally important to us and meaningful to us, and we should respect the fact that other people's expressions are equally important to them, to themselves. For the sake of understanding the concept better, the Secretariat of the Convention has identified a number of categories, or the Convention has identified a number of categories which are called ICH domains, which include like oral traditions and expressions, so which can be folk songs, for instance, or poetry. Performing arts, which could include everything from music to dance to circus to puppetry. Social practices, rituals, and festive events, from carnivals to rites of passage to celebration of New Year or Easter. Knowledge and practices concerning nature and the universe, and we have heard about all the agricultural practices and Mediterranean diets that are related to nature and environment in Italy. And the knowledge of traditional craftsmanship, so the knowledge of producing crafts. Yet this list is not exhaustive. This is only providing a guidance, and several countries, several parties have identified, or several groups have identified other ways, like games and sports, for instance. So basically, to quickly summarize, these are the key concepts we always have to keep in mind when we are thinking about living heritage, which is that of community, the community defining their own living heritage, this idea of identity, meaning, and values, which is what will define by them, the idea of transmission, which is really important, making sure that this practice keep being shared with different groups over generations. The notion that this ICH is dynamic, so there is no authenticity, no real way of doing it. It's also present in all communities, in all countries of the world. We all have, whether we live in a rural area or in an urban area or in any countries, we all have a set of practices, skills, and knowledge that are part of our heritage. And a very important element is that it is not limited to a place or to a state borders. Similar practices, which is why Italy, for instance, has listed so many shared elements with other countries. And we can see that from falconry to the Mediterranean diet, for instance, ICH is expressed everywhere beyond borders. Then let's look quickly at the concept of safeguarding, quickly because it's too complex to go into the details. What does safeguarding mean here? It means ensuring that communities, groups, and individuals can keep practicing and transmitting their ICH in a way that is meaningful to them. So whatever measures we take to ensure the safeguarding means that we want to ensure the viability of it. Why safeguarding ICH? because it is often, with the change of lifestyle, it is facing a number of threats, which can be the deterioration or the disappearance of ICH. It can be the freezing of ICH, so meaning that some people try to keep it in a certain state without allowing it to evolve. The loss of function and meaning, which would be, for instance, it happens a lot in Asia, where you have some dances and songs that are related to a specific agricultural practice or rituals, and this is put on stage without connection whatsoever with why this living heritage was existed in the first hand, and decontextualization, which is similar. Misrepresentation or misappropriation, which is when people are using the ICH of others in a way. Inequitable income distribution, which can happen in the case especially of living heritage practices that are connected to cultural industries, crafts, and dance and music. And there can be environmental issues also. For instance, you do not find raw material to produce a certain tool which is required for the practice. We make here the distinction between threats, which are current problem, and risk, which are anticipated problems. And of course, we want to identify risk before they become threats. How to safeguard ICH? The idea is to identify a number of safeguarding measures, which is one of the objectives of this program, is to guide you into identifying these measures, and ideally to build that into a plan, which is a current set of measures. This can happen by a number of measures, which can go from documentation and research to these inventories that exist but can always be expanded and improved, to promotion and awareness raising by getting people to know more about which practices exist and why they are important. Focus on the meaning is very important here. Supporting the transmission of skills within communities, but also through education programs, which can be about the ICH or also with ICH, which is a specific methodology that we will address during the program. And also by developing promotional and protective measures related to intellectual property. And finally, let's look at the concept of convention. So UNESCO has a lot of convention, which are formal agreement between states. These are texts, and states can choose to ratify or not the text, so they become state parties. And once they have become state parties, they are bound to follow the obligations and rules of the conventions. Conventions produces operational directives to guide the implementation, and we will use some of this to explain the program. Within UNESCO, there are 6 active conventions, which are listed here. There used to be a universal copyright convention, which has now moved under the jurisdiction of WIPO. And specifically, because we have talked about already in the previous convention, I would like to highlight the fact that this 3 convention on World Cultural and Natural Heritage, on Intangible Cultural Heritage, 2003 convention, and the Convention on the Promotion and Protection of the Diversity of Cultural Expression, called the 2005 Convention, are quite interrelated in the sense that they can work together, but there can also be some confusions between them. Of course, their main objective is different. One is looking at cultural sites, specific places, one at practices, and one at activities, goods, and services, but from a different point of view, because the 2003 convention really put the community at the heart of it. The community will define the value of different heritage elements, whereas the World Heritage Convention, for instance, will look at outstanding universal value, which means uniqueness, authenticity, and integrity, which is obviously not what we are doing in the 2003 convention. And the 2005 convention will look at cultural, social, and economic values. But this can work hand in hand together, and that's when earlier when you were discussing in the original speech about establishing bridges, this is a really important aspect, especially between World Heritage and 2003 Convention. A lot of practices are actually connected to sites. People will practice in a specific place, and the two will work hand in hand. And yes, and between the 2003 and 2005 Convention, we are looking at practices which can have both a social and economic value for the community. And the different convention will address different aspects of it. 2003 will look at transmission and safeguarding, whereas 2005 convention will look at ways and policies to support the economic aspects.
Per quanto riguarda gli obiettivi della Convenzione,
Regarding the objectives of the convention, we have the first, the Article 1, the safeguarding of the intangible heritage, the respect of the heritage, the awareness, also the collective appreciation, also cooperation and international assistance. And these objectives are introduced in the capacity building program, a program of awareness and training on the safeguard. So awareness and safeguard are already introduced in the title of the program. What are the benefits that need to be included in the implementation of the convention? An improved safeguarding of the intangible heritage with the member states that could also contribute to the wealth of the community. So as we said, and Vanessa said it also now, the community is at the center of the Convention 2003, and also when we talk about the benefits, the main people benefiting from it are the communities, and they are the people bringing the practices. Other benefits are respect. Of course, they are related to the wealth of the community. That is the main one. We have the respect of comprehension, mutual comprehension between communities, sustainable development, and also the improvement of human and diversity and creativity. All these are key elements that were already used before by our previous speakers. Regarding cooperation and international assistance, that is one of the main goals of the 2003 Convention. This allows to share experiences and information at an international level. And this is fundamental because safeguarding the intangible heritage, cultural intangible heritage, is safeguarding the human heritage. So in this safeguarding, we share, of course, experiences and information. We share the safeguarding practices. And then there's also the possibility to access the assistance fund, and we're going to talk about later. And we can also appoint programs and elements of the ICH, because this convention includes also the lists. So there are nominations that are going to be introduced in the list. You can also, there's the possibility to participate also in the bodies of the convention. And then it's possible to use also the regional and international cooperation through the shared heritage. Vanessa talked about these elements and programs of the ICH that are shared. Italy has a lot of these elements, but also thanks also to the category centers too. And in Europe, we have the center in Sofia. The member states, when they ratified the convention 2003, they take some they take some obligations, they accept some obligations. First, the state needs to take care of the heritage in the territory and to create it needs to create an inventory in the national territory with also the criteria of registration, and the state takes the responsibility to safeguard the ICH that is on the territory, not only the part that is included in the list, but the whole heritage. And this is fundamental. The ICH is not only what is included in the list, and it also takes the responsibility to grant the participation of the community in identifying and in the definition and safeguard of the ICH. So the community is at the center of this action that are identifying the heritage, and this cannot be done without the community. Also, it needs to define the heritage and to understand what are the safeguarding measures that can create the plan itself. The states take the responsibility to contribute to the fund of the ICH, and also to report on the committee. And in Italy, we know what it means. You know what it means, this part, because this is an important element. This is really difficult, and it included different communities. And this was one of the obligations that the state accepted when the convention was ratified. Regarding the operativity of the convention, the main tool needs to be the convention itself, that you can find easily on the internet, on Google. So UNESCO prepares some books with the basic tests on the activity of the convention, but I don't think it's necessary anymore to have it on paper, because you can find it online on the website of UNESCO or also on Google. So then we have the second tool we have are the operational directives. And we said it before that these help to implement the convention and also to modernize it, because it's easier to change a directive compared to a text of a convention. And that's why the directives are always updated. We also have two lists in this convention and also a register of common practices. We have the ICH fund and also the framework of results that is needed for the report. Then we have also the capacity building programs, as the one we are doing and we're going to do during the following months. Also the research according to the topic and to the field, and then the implementation of specific projects. The operational directives, this is the book I was talking about with the basic tests that are prepared by UNESCO, and and it's used in different situations, and you can also download it if you want on the commission, an Italian commission for UNESCO, on the website of UNESCO. So the directives are a guideline for implementing the convention, are prepared by the committee, approved by the General Assembly. The latest edition was 2022, and there are different topics regarding the ICH at international level, cooperation, international assistance, the fund, participation to the implementation of the convention, awareness on the ICH, and also the use of the emblem of the convention. We're going to see it in the capacity building program. This is this shouldn't be taken for granted. The idea of using the logo of UNESCO, even though if you are if you are registered to UNESCO, also the report to the committee and the safeguard and sustainable development at a national level. This is the overall results framework. That is a tool that allows to measure the impact of the Convention of 2003 considering different levels. And it allows the reporting, and it gives a structure also to it. So we have this framework, the results framework, that is composed by impact results, 8 areas, 26 base indicators, and 86 analysis factors. This is really complex, but I wanted to show you how also the report is important, because it's an obligation of the state and it needs to happen thanks to the intervention of the community, because the communities are the elements that need to help these situations to do the report. And also this is beneficial for the communities themselves. So this should be beneficial for the communities in the end. Extremely important is also the sustainable development. The intangible heritage is a driving force for the sustainable development. Here we have a map that UNESCO created. You can find it also on the website, and it allows you to dive into the intangible heritage, considering different topics with the goals of sustainable development. And you can connect, taking into consideration the different elements, and we're going to show the map better in the program. You can connect the different elements of the intangible heritage in the world. You can connect this to a particular goal, sustainable goal included in the Agenda 2023 of the United Nations.
Sviluppo sostenibile.
So talking about sustainable development and talking about guidelines for member states, we're talking about inclusive sustainable development. So food safety, health assistance, high quality training, gender equality, access to clean and safe waters and sustainable use of waters, and economic sustainable development includes creation of tools for the livelihood of the community, employment, dignitous job, impact of tourism on safeguarding of ICH. So environmental sustainability, practices regarding nature and the universe, impacts on the environment, resilience based on the ability of the community to face and tackle natural disasters and climate change effects also. And first of all, the ICH is seen as an instrument for reaching peace, so about social cohesion in order to prevent and settling disputes while restoring peace and safety and reaching and lasting peace. So the heritage can also allow succeeding also in doing this and in reaching these goals. So it's extremely important.
Different stakeholders who are involved in these safeguarding aspects and their respective roles. And this is a very schematic way of representing a very complex situation in a way. But as we have mentioned already, we have the community, and the practitioners, which are at the center of it, because ICH is their identity. They are the bearers of it, working hand in hand with the central and local administrations and the governments, which is the party, the signatory party to the convention. But of course, this work is not done in silo. There are also NGOs and the private sector and academia, universities, researchers, UNESCO chairs. The general public, of course, has also a word to say about that. So there are many stakeholders involved, each with different interests and a different role to play. And this is only at the national level. If we look again one step further at the international level, we also have a number of NGOs, including a set of NGOs under the convention. There are accredited NGOs, and some of them have created this forum, which is discussing and debating different issues related to the convention, and sometimes advising the Secretariat on it. There are the UNESCO offices, including the one in Venice here. There are UNESCO centers, like the one in Sofia, the Category 2 centers, and there are also some in other parts of the world, in Latin America and Asia. And in Europe specifically, there is a network of experts on ICH, which is meeting regularly to discuss specific topics and issues. So, we have already discussed a little bit the role of state parties at the national level. We can simplify this process by saying that the state is acting at 4 different levels. The one of legal and administrative context, by creating policies, setting up institutions and networks that will support the safeguarding of intangible heritage. They have a role in the inventory, which is actually the real obligation in the text of the convention. So as part of the identification of the elements and their definition, and of course the updates of this inventory over time, so that it is not frozen in time. They have a role at playing in safeguarding the ICH present on their territory, so with community participation. And this can be done through capacity building or awareness raising or research. And here we are talking about ICH present on the territory, which means that it can be about non-Italian communities too, in the case of Italy, and other countries too. And a strong role in awareness raising, where we can have all the action related to the legal protections, to ethics, to promoting good safeguarding practices, about education, and about communication about ICH to a broad audience, so that they become more aware of the meaning and importance of the practice themselves and of safeguarding them. But UNESCO talk about one state party, but we know that there are actually many government actors involved, and this is very important here, that this meeting is representing a number of these actors. We have the Ministry of Culture, and we have, of course, the other ministries, the other bodies that are here, and the region and municipalities. So we have a really good chemistry working here, and this program, I hope, will contribute to this dialogue and coordination. It's important to keep in mind these different aspects, because in some circumstances there can be policies in one ministry, one domains, that could have involuntarily an hindering effect on the safeguarding of an element in another environment. So it's really important to be able to identify this point of these issues and discuss them. And then we have been talking a lot about communities. So who are the communities? There is no definition per se in the convention itself, but it is broadly understood as people who participate in the practice and transmission of an ICH element and consider it to be part of a cultural heritage. So it's quite broad, because it can be people who are actively masters of doing something and transmitters of it. It can be, so let's say, a craft master, or people who are having this specific knowledge. But it can be communities identifying themselves with the ICH without necessarily being the core practitioners, for instance, because we are contributing to one part of the practice. If we speak of a festival, there will be the people in the festival, but there may be a lot of elements to get to these festivals, maybe some costumes, maybe some specific rituals that are related to it. And then there is the general public, the general audience, which may not be actively practicing or actively transmitted, but may feel deeply connected with it and want the practice to be safeguarded and to continue. So when we are talking about community, again, we are talking about a very plural concept, and it would be interesting throughout this program and beyond it to keep this discussion and this reflection alive on who is in the community, how is the community organized, what are the relationship between the different people in these groups. Do we have a representative, and who is making decision? It's sometimes very difficult. It's easy to simplify it in a monolithic block, but community is composed of many individuals, and it's very important to keep these reflections and to keep this flexibility in the process so that the community are understood as plural element. And then there can be network of communities, and we hope that this kind of program is something that will encourage the strengthening of these networks. These networks can be at the international level. You can have communities discussing similar elements, for instance, when you have these shared elements, but they can also be within one country, one state, having different people working, for instance, on agricultural practice, how they deal with their respective elements and or their lessons learned from that. So when you within one domain, one category, or maybe one region, what are they can be exchanged to learn from each other and their respective approaches. When we say that the convention prioritizes community-centered safeguarding, what do we mean? So of course, the convention mentions that it's important that the practice continue and that it is transmitted among the community. So we want to really foster this aspect of transmission and that the actions related to the safeguarding would go into this direction. We want to ensure that any action will maintain the meaning and value of the element of the community concerned. We want to ensure that changes over time are acceptable to the communities concerned. And this is when we are talking about these plural communities, maybe we need to be quite careful, because some part of the community may be more open to change than others. So this dialogue needs to happen internally. And it's important that communities benefit sustainably from the safeguarding. And we are talking about the various aspects of sustainable development, different pillars where economic, social, or environmental aspects, which is why the principle of free, prior, sustained, and informed consent, which we will develop, is very important. Any action should be led by the consent of the community that an action or research is taking place. So whether we are talking about the process of identifying elements without a community in order to document them and inventory them, or to create a plan and measures, or to transmit it, or to raise awareness about ICH, it's important to keep the community there, to have their voice, their ideas. Of course, we are not working in silos, so this is done in collaboration and with support from institutions, the government, of course, and other agencies, which can be NGOs, and potentially with UNESCO programs like this one. NGO, academia, museum, and other organizations are part of these institutions that can play an important role, whether at the national or international level, about supporting this process throughout, from awareness raising to inventory research and training. So what we are highlighting here is that really stakeholder collaboration is essential to safeguard ICH. This is not a simple task. Everyone has to work with hand in hand, but of course it comes with some challenges that we have to keep in mind when we are going through this process. Conceptual challenges, because more people means more ideas, more choice, more opinions. In identifying solutions, there is not a simple recipe. Everyone will have a different view on what constitutes a solution. And again, in this idea of community, who will decide in the name of the community? On what basis can the decisions be made? There are also implementation challenges. If you have a safeguarding plan, who does what and who monitors it and what constitutes a success? Which is why the convention is now putting a lot of emphasis on ethical approaches. And there is a set of 12 ethical principles for safeguarding ICH, which has been issued. So by ethics, we talk about sensitivity and honesty and transparency and sharing information. We will not look at these 12 ethical principles in detail here. It will be done in the capacity building program, but again, some of them, as you can see here, that we have flashed, highlight that there is a role for community and that there should be transparent collaboration and dialogue with free prior informed consent of the community concerned, and that everyone should benefit. We will go through this more in detail later.
Breve pausa.
A short break before going to the next session of this presentation regarding inscriptions. First of all these slides we are showing to you are already an integral part of the training course, and they will also be made available to all of you online on the website of UNESCO and the regional office website of UNESCO. So of course you will get all the links in order to access this presentation, and all these concepts will also be tackled with in the next meetings, in the next sessions from now on to the next to the end of this year. So all these concepts for sure will be tackled into the details in an interactive way and in a dynamic way, also with all stakeholders who will join this debate. Well, I am working on this convention since a lot of years, but every time I approach it, every time I have a discussion regarding it, regarding the sense and the spirit of it, I'm always surprised, and I always notice how it changed the paradigm of our way of approaching cultural heritage. Every single article of the convention is so dense of implications, follow-ups, and points that could be also be tackled individually and discussed individually and for hours. How longer discussions really on each and every single point. But still, going back to our issue, in the morning, Elena was reminding us the importance and the failings, the great failings, the proud and this satisfaction in having concluding this path when an element is inscribed in a list, in a representative list. She was talking about this thing also, but the inscription is not just the conclusion of a long path, a long journey, but it's a starting point. Be careful about that. It's about starting to be aware of a series of activities and the implication of a lot of stakeholders working for that, and determining a different approach to the whole matter, determining a different way of doing things in a way which is inspired by ethical things, ethical aspects and principles, with a great involvement of communities, which are always considered to be considered as a plural entity, and also the guidelines don't really define communities in an exact way. It's impossible to define an international community considering the broad variety of contexts where they live in and they work in. So community is a multitasking stakeholder. It's a community of people, made of different people, of course, made of different groups, made of different bearers of different interests, still interacting among themselves, working for the inclusion of this element in the list of the cultural heritage, but still being able to to interact with institutional players at the local, central level, also with a lot of stakeholders. Working in the research, communication, documentation field, but also interacting with all the stakeholders, bearing different interests and contributions, and playing different roles in a complex and collective safeguarding context. If you have any questions, allow me to ask you. If you have any question, please stop me and raise your hand. If you don't need any explanation, we can go on with the last part of this introductory presentation. Then we will go on with the program. Do you need a break, a technical break, and maybe a short break? Do you need that? I see some people saying, yeah, okay, so just 5 minutes break, then we will meet up again here. Thank you.
Stiamo per riprendere.
Altrimenti lo ringraziavamo.
Ok, siamo pronti.
Okay, here we are. And so in order to briefly conclude today's first presentation, I invite you to speak fast. Then we will conclude with the final remarks regarding the program. Then we will have some time for some questions and others. Okay.
Presentazione, per favore. Ci metti la presentazione? Ecco, perfetto, grazie. Molto brevemente.
So, briefly, in this convention, there are two lists. The first is a representative list for the Intangible Cultural Heritage, where we have over 567 elements inscribed from all over the world. We have 16 only in Italy. And they must be elements proving the diversity of the cultural and intangible heritage. We're talking about cultural differences, diversity. They have to contribute to increase the awareness and the visibility of the ICH at the worldwide level, not just the visibility of the element itself, but also the visibility of other elements. And they also have to encourage dialogue and respect for cultural diversity. And so the cycle for reporting on that is 6 years. The second is the list for the cultural intangible heritage, needing urgent safeguarding measure. Italy has no elements inscribed in this list, but still these are elements that the concerned community and the member states consider to be needing urgent measures to keep them alive. And also this list has to promote the safeguard of the ICH, and the reporting period is reduced to 4 years, and on this list is possible to ask for assistance, including a financial one that can also be preparatory in the wake of the candidature. Here you can see two examples, which unfortunately we cannot discuss due to our schedule, our timetable. So let's jump to the next slides, where you can see the 16 elements inscribed by Italy in the representative list. The very first two elements were belonging to the previous program, and then they passed by default in the in the other convention, while all the others were inscribed according to the inscription elements, and some of them are even multinational elements. We, among the participants in this capacity building, have the communities of all these 16 elements. Some are present here in this hall, some others are following us from remote connection, and this can also be an occasion for contributing to better knowledge of each and every single community. And all the communities being part of this UNESCO list, and the opportunity to work together. There will be working groups. We will see the capacity building program. We will have round tables. It will be really a great networking, allowing all these communities to exchange ideas and opinions. There's even a 17th community here in front of me, which is not really in this slide, but it's in this second slide, because it was inscribed in the Register of Good Practice. This register is a third list of this convention, and I know that for some of you, we are talking about trifling things, but still, this audience is so varied, so it's important for us to take some steps back and talking about the basis also. Then we will go into the details during the capacity building program. So all those who already know that will just listen to this, and the others who don't know yet all these issues will come to know them for the first time. So this register is the third register in this, is the third list in this convention, with 33 programs only. So the representative list is mostly privileged in this, and the UNESCO Convention is pushing to highlight the importance of this register, because in this register there's a list of good practice made of program, projects, activities which best reflect, and before they were called best practice, but still now they are called good practice, and they best represent the principles of the convention, and they can also be a driving force for all the other elements and programs and projects within the ICH, especially for the developing countries, but not just for them. So having a good practice will also allow us to have a good model during this capacity building, and the exchange will be extremely important also for the other communities concerned. The toccate is a good practice in Italy, not just Italian good practice. It's a multinational practice, just like other elements inscribed in the representative list, Italian representative list. So what we have said, it is repeated even again here. Then we will talk about the capacity building program. You just have 2 capacity buildings on the ICH under emergency situations, just like what is happening in Italy and in Emilia-Romagna, namely. And so we just wanted to mention also the ICH in emergency situations because of what we are experiencing now in Italy, unfortunately. And talking about these lists, lists are not everything. The Convention of 2003 is not just limited to talk about lists and whatever they contain, but it is meant to safeguard all the intangible cultural heritage, wherever it is located, because it's compliant with the criteria of the Convention, means human rights, otherwise it cannot be included in the Convention of 2003. Another thing is sustainable development. But the convention is just not about the inscribed heritage, but also the heritage which is not inscribed yet. So in this capacity building, we also take care of other kinds of heritages, not just the 17th or 16th elements and the program inscribed by Italy. And the convention urges the states to protect the whole heritage, to safeguard it as a whole, not just what they have inscribed in these lists.
I'd like to highlight that UNESCO has been putting a lot of reflection recently on ICH in emergency situations. And we want to highlight it because this has become an unfortunate reality for Italy a few weeks ago with the floods. Disasters happen, wars happen, we don't expect them. And when we talk about ICH, it's important to keep in mind that these disasters can happen. And when we develop plans and measures to keep in mind that there could be preparedness measures included in these plans in case a disaster or an emergency happens. So there can also be response measures, which are right after the issue, or recovery measures over the longer time. I don't know if this is really impacting ICH communities for this program, but to keep in mind for a broader reflection. Now let's go to the heart of the program and why we are here, which is this capacity building program. The objective of the capacity building program are to promote safeguarding of the ICH in line with the principles of the convention through awareness raising, acquisition of new skills and knowledge that we will present, and also to have this networking element, so supporting this networking among these 17 communities, peer exchanges, and other relevant stakeholders. So what we do hope is that at the end of the course, all the participants will have a better in-depth understanding of the 2003 Convention, its principles, and all these various dimensions that we have highlighted today. Identify who does what in relation to their element, and who could do what in relation to these elements. Get inspirations from the other communities, get knowledge, this exchange, communities in Italy and abroad. We will try to bring in some speakers from outside. And all these elements in order to have a broader reflection on ways to safeguard ICH, your ICH elements, your programs in collaboration with all who's involved, all stakeholders involved. So yes, when we talk about the participants to these programs, this is focusing specifically on these 17 elements and programs with practitioners at the center, because we are at the center of the community, but without forgetting that safeguarding ICH is not going to happen in silo. There is an ecosystem that is here, there is the government that is here, the municipalities, the central policies, and all these other institutional partners like the museum, NGOs, and researchers. And again, we are we hope that we can replicate in this program these ecosystems to have these multiple layers of exchanges and enrichment and collaboration, because this is what will really allow us to walk towards the safeguarding. The modalities of the program is that we will have online sessions. We are planning on having these sessions 2 hours every week. And these sessions will be quite diverse. They will include short lectures by us. We will have a lot of discussions and group work and case studies presented by the participants, by us, and by guest speakers. So when we think of online programs, we have been, after COVID, the feeling that we are often alone. This, we hope, will not be the case, that there will be the opportunity to work in groups within your communities and with your partners and with other stakeholders involved. There will be, of course, the 2 hours where you will be behind the screen. We will be behind the screen, but there will be also course preparation. We will provide you materials in advance. We will have reflection for the preparation of the course, which will feed into all this exercise. We will try to provide assignments that will allow you to walk towards the development of safeguarding measures. And we will have clinic where you can send your questions, and everyone will be encouraged to answer us, of course, as the facilitators, but everyone will be able to bring their views and experience in that. Your turn.
Per quanto riguarda la lingua, sarà
So going back to the language issue, it will be English. So try and detect the people who could attend in your community, English speaking or English knowing people within your community, because it's extremely important, because the working language will be English, and Italian summaries will be made available. So mainly we will work in English, then we will have some moments in Italian, and all the translation of all these materials that you will have in both languages. And there will also be the simultaneous interpretation by a professional interpreter available. So even if you don't detect a person who is able to understand and speak English, or even if you prefer to speak Italian, or if you prefer to send someone who speaks just Italian, then you have all these instruments and tools in order to properly interact. Then the main issues, the main subjects, and the weeks of reference. In the first week, we will talk about the 2003 convention. Then we will briefly say again what we've said during the morning. So we will go into the details of that. And talking about mainly the principles and the concepts of the Convention 2003. Then in the second week, participation upon the community basis, so documents and transfer of all these documents. Then the fourth, measures for protection and promotion. The seventh, legal protection measures, intellectual property rights, and other things, also considering that this bears a collective nature. So it falls within the protection and promotion measures. Then fifth, gender and ICH and sustainable development, ICH and school. For the 11th week, and monitoring, networking, and reporting for the 12th week. Some weeks are not noted down here, just like the 8th, for example. We didn't forget about that. It's reporting down in this slide on the 8th, and the 13th week we will have the clinic, the legal clinic, for example, clinic on the heritage, of course, on the 8th, and 13th week. On the 13th, 17th week, presentation and analysis of the reports, because it's not just about having lessons, but it's an interaction between communities, speakers, or attendees and speakers. We will have working groups. We will have a clear exchange among peers and a clear networking, which will always be there as a precious resource. This is the agenda, starting from the 5th of June, the launch in presence, since we are now, and by August, end of August, late August, don't worry about that, because August is a really hot month in Italy. So August and November, we will have these online sessions, 2 hours each. October, November, the participants will draft their reports. December, January, they will restart the online sessions with the presentation of the reports. So don't worry about the seasons period, the Christmas period, and holidays. We'll take care about that. And in January 2024, we will have the closing. What are the expectations of the program? So you will be in touch with at least one of the 17 elements. So you will be fully committed in the long term, since you will attend at least 14 out of the 17 sessions within the 6-month period. You will have to be ready to dedicate your time. This is extremely important, because it works only if you invest your time. Exactly what we were saying also in the morning, patient rise and passion is all. See, so you have to dedicate your time, and we are all passionate about these things, and we are here for that, because we love what we do. You will interact with other participants during the sessions. You will share what you learn with the members of your communities, which we are not able to attend it. So it's important to share whatever you have learned within your community. You will also contribute and develop and implement a safeguard plan for your element. This is extremely important. You will not get out with a safeguard plan, which is a ready-made plan. It's impossible to do that. We know that in Italy, this ministry and other ministries have allocated to the communities some funds to work on this safeguard, and it takes a lot of time, a lot of efforts from all the communities concerned. So the aim is not that on working on a plan, but here you can present yourself and keep on working together with your community in order to best succeed in doing that. Which are your expectations and your ideas, generally speaking? So if you want to interact, then we will talk about other expectations, what you're expecting from this safeguarding plan. This is just a general outlook on our program. We hope we will work with you in order to share our next steps with you. So thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, Benedetta. So, talking about expectations, well, we have to ask ourselves what are our expectations. But we have said a lot about community and community concepts. So let's now give voice to the communities. Give the floor to the communities. We are honored to have here the two representatives of the community within the National Observatory for UNESCO Intangible Heritage. So I would like to invite Mr. Alesi Massimo to take the floor, followed by Stefano Pisani, Mayor Stefano Pisani. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for this invitation, Mr. Rosati. Obviously, I would also like to thank Mrs. Perch and the Ministry for the warm welcome, and also Honorable Mazzi, who introduced today's works. I'm mainly referring to two words which I really appreciated in this discussion, and I'm addressing Mrs. Thompson-Florence. Obviously, we are the humanity of this heritage. That's true. And as Tim Curtis has said, all these, and also in my place where I live in, we call it community, and we call it community. I just want to say something. I'm the POC of the Face for Forgiveness. It's an ancient ritual dating back to 7 centuries ago, containing another ingredient that you have already mentioned today, means resilience of a community itself. And this is part of our heritage, but this is also part of an ancient project based on peace and reconciliation dating back to 7 centuries ago. It's a great festivity driving a community to reconcile it with itself and with the other communities. This is our mandate, and thanks to UNESCO, it has become an international mandate. It's an honor for us, of course. I used to say that, and that generation transfer, which was also named here today, is driving us to think that we are on the right way. And we will keep on defending it in an innovative way. And now I address to Europe. This could also be as a reconciling message for all of us. So thank you again for this extremely broad presentation, and also for talking about the operational capacity building. And we are strongly surprised by that. And doubtless, it's an extremely important concept and issue. And just reminding Paula Slavic, who was my professor, who was used to say that complexity must be tackled with easiness. So we have to facilitate complex things, and we have learned a lot about this also today. We are before an extraordinary complexity nowadays. Means we have to bring back to the intangible heritage to modalities that should force us to find some new rules. It's a great challenge. I firmly believe in the community rules, which is based on the peaceful coexistence of this community, of the communities as a whole. And we are fully integrated in our communities, and we are proud for that, of course. But again, resorting to the interventions made in the morning, we have to reiterate that communities are not just the stakeholders, but they are the guardians and the protectors of all this, because what we are representing here is the participation of all stakeholders. Participation is not always clearly shaped. Mainly, you can consider that you participate in a public debate just being there, but in reality, if you want to really attend, you have to be operational. You have to really target the final aim. So I was really glad for having grabbed within this program a strong participation and community feeling. Last but not least, it is clear that communities, as they are in a condition like the convention implemented in Italy, are in reality also stakeholders themselves. And this is something I want to raise here. And the reality, we are representatives of qualified interests and the protection of some good and heritage, which is important for our communities who work for this safeguarding since the last centuries. And this is extremely important because it's like a crystal glass we have in our hands, and we are the guardians of this crystal glass. And what does it mean to convey this awareness also to the future generations? Safeguarding special cases like all the elements that we have seen already before means to be, first of all, aware of the value which can't be measured, the value of the sense, the feeling of community. And this leads us directly to something concrete. The safeguard plans, in just like the elements which are useful to codify this process, must contain a feeling. Just let me use this word. They are in a way linked to a belonging feeling, a profound feeling which evolves around these heritages. Italy, and this is a highly symbolic place we are in today. Italy is one of the most important protectors of this feeling because we are an ancient people, an ancient population already containing this community feeling. We have been working from the legislative point of view for the last 2,000 years, not just a matter of a few months. And this is why we can strongly contribute at the international level. From my side, of course, then I will give the floor to my colleague. I stay fully available to guide in a way this work along with the working group in order to make the communities aware of what, sorry for this word, they are handling, what they have in their hands concretely in the recognition and the acknowledgement program. We were supported by excellencies in this ministry, and we were able to prove at the international level something that we didn't even know it was in our hands. So this is the issue. So UNESCO gave us this possibility, and we made the most of that. So the community must be aware of that, because we are talking about collective heritage and collective goods. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for your broad considerations and deep ones on communities and the spirit of it, and also considering the context of today. Now I give the floor to Mr. Stefano Pisani. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitations. I want to greet all the communities that we've been talking about today, because they are the center of the value of the intangible cultural heritage. Of course, I want to greet the subsecretary, the institutions. Today, the introduction of this program was really interesting. We understood that we have at our disposal a tool. And with the communities, we want to contribute to it, considering the real needs. If we want really to make it a valuable asset for communities, this capacity building needs to include also our knowledge of the communities. And during the work we're going to have in the following weeks, we need to understand the needs. So we shouldn't just accept a general approach to the topic. If this tool needs to be a tool for the community, we need to understand what they need. And at the same time, we need to make sure that this tool is fully accessible.
Normally, the knowledge keeper don't know English. So, è molto importante che
It's important that the tool is available for the real people bringing the knowledge. If we want to enter this program, we need to make sure they are introduced to in this path. We shouldn't make sure they are not introduced. They should be included in it. Sorry, I just wanted to highlight these needs. We know that the 16+1 heritage we have are composed by extreme diversity, and often doesn't allow to the heritages to communicate among themselves and in a general way. And Italy, as it has been doing for quite a lot, Italy needs to do more. I am also a mayor. I represent my community, so my approach may be slightly different compared to the single representative of communities. So I want also to thank UNESCO, because recognizing the intangible cultural heritage often is considered as a result. For us and for other heritage as the Mediterranean diet, I represent the community of the Mediterranean diet. And the recognition we got in 2010 underwent a strong process, a difficult one. I want to greet also Professor Petrillo, that took care of the candidacy of the Mediterranean diet for the Italian government, because at the time it wasn't considerate. And the pride we had made possible to make sure that that heritage could become a real model for local development that helps also the rebirth of the local communities, respecting the 17 objectives that were given to us. And this happened because UNESCO recognized the Mediterranean diet as intangible cultural heritage. And maybe this couldn't have happened without it, and in some places in Italy. And I want also to say that the ICH are right now also the tool that are the tools that allow us to manage also the natural phenomenon. We're talking about different small actions that represent essential elements that make possible for the human being to govern nature. So to us, it's important to have the necessary tools to make sure that our heritage could improve. Not considering, of course, that we are working a lot already. But the national government needs to continue with the work, recognizing the value of the communities, and the government needs to support them, because the safeguarding plans are necessary. I'm a mayor, you should remember that. So, of course, I I have some also some elements that I consider important. So we need to support the communities in the implementation path, because even if we have the greatest plans, we need also the resources, the skills, the competences that we use to implement that heritage. I really hope that I was exhaustive in some ways, and thank you for the invitation. And I also wanted to say something more. Subsecretary, I really hope that in the I hope that in the reconvene of the observatory, I think that if we want to increase the participation to the observatory, considering it's an important tool for policy on the territory, it's important to have a provision from the ministries to make sure every community can participate, because also in this case, increasing the participation of communities means increasing the value itself of those heritages, and also of highlighting also the value of those heritage for the future generations, because it's not only the development of my community, but also the development of the future communities. Thank you, everyone.
Grazie, grazie.
Thank you, Mayor Pisani, for your intervention. And I guess it was perfect to end this part of the program. And a passionate one, a pragmatic one, with a vision. And I guess we are ready to grasp all the also the suggestions you gave us, starting with the inclusion, the will to increase the participation. And of course, this program includes the challenge we face every day when we try to implement the tools for formation, the policy tools, and when we need to implement those tools in our national territory, of course, starting with the differences in languages, we are doing it already, but we're going to do it. And we want to make sure, of course, that the contents are also transmitted in Italian. But then we want also to interpret and to sum up the materials. And we want to do it with a set of materials that are developed also with the languages, international languages. Considering that the program itself is part of the capacity development programs supported by the UNESCO. Of course, this is a starting point. And of course, we want to have to increase the inclusion and the diversity. Of course, I'm going to contribute to the last part of the work, but we want also to make sure we are able to do it in the right way, to make sure we create also an interactive situation, to make sure that every stakeholder can interact. And also we want to grant the quality of the training course we are offering and also the contents we are displaying. We expect 150 people online. The models of selection for participants are still on the way. They're going to be presented during the following days, not only based on the communication we did already online and in presence, but also with the official websites and of UNESCO and the ministry. So the criteria are also diversity, inclusion, relevance. We want to select people that have a specific role, but also different roles, to make sure that the interests we are getting are coming from different people. And also, we want to create some balance, geographically speaking. We want to represent the individual elements, considering also that these elements are really different, and also the diffusion in the territory is different, also the structure. So we can't start with a fixed structure. We cannot have the same number for everyone. Of course, there's going to be a tender with a form, a simple form, that is going to ask the motivation, the role inside each element, the institutional role, the role in the community, to understand what are going to be the participants, and also to make sure we can also customize the content of the training course, and to make sure we can also be more aware of the people coming, and we can also get from that more interaction and knowledge of the people involved, the people we're going to work with in the following period. The course is not the end of everything, because after the 17 sessions, some materials are going to be available online. So if you can attend directly to the live sessions, you're going to be able to access the content, taking from it also the added value of the linguistic diversity, because some of the content are already available, but only in in English and French. So of course, this is going to be something more to make sure we can. This is going to be something more also in implementation on the national territory. Two important criteria are an invitation, and something we wish for those participating is to consider that this activity is going to be challenging. We're talking about 2 hours each week. There are different commitments involved, and also you need to contribute interactively and in an active way. So you need to have the will to share, and you need to have the will also to express to present your experiences, to enrich the others, and this is going to be the basis of the program itself. The last criteria I wanted to add is also this one, considering that we can have 150 people. We want also to spread the information we are going to get from it. We need to do it. So the people that are going to participate in the program, of course, they are expected also to share this knowledge they're going to get in the training course, and they are going also to be developed during the works. I've been talking too much, so I will leave the closing to Elena. Sinibaldi. Thank you. I wanted to thank the representatives of the communities, Mr. Alesi. I want to thank Massimo in particular for the kind words you had for our Ministry of Culture. Also, the Ministry of Culture, the UNESCO service during the last 5 years, they supported their communities, they coordinated the processes, they tried to enrich our heritage at a national level with 8 more elements. Thank you also, Mr. Pecci, who has been working in first line in the field. And it was also a satisfaction to see this happening, and because also this finish line for us represents a summary of what I've been doing, what we have been doing together with the institution, with the scientific part, with the technical part, and also the community. So I want to thank also the Mayor Pisani, and it's extremely important also your role in it, because it shows us also how the local representation are important, because during the years, they're taking awareness of the situation, and they are those asking for something more to make sure that also the heritage and also the public dimension of this heritage are preserved. And of course, we are going to, for the first time, we are understanding what is the current situation. This event for us is a celebration, but this celebrates the national heritage, the Italian heritage. We began this initiative remembering also the 20th anniversary, and we are doing it with the spirit that we have. And we want to bring a new perspective that is more important, that has more structure, that is more systemic. Maybe during the years we have been worrying a lot about the recognitions, about trying to give value and identity to our territories. And right now, maybe we are getting through a new phase that requires us to take our own responsibilities to safeguard together all this heritage we have. And the subsecretary also opened the day talking about this collection of knowledge we have. He talked about culture, transmission, about young people. In some ways, our path is already written in the directives. If we consider Directive 8081, we can see that the state is asked to coordinate, to create also the inventory, and to take actions in the safeguard. But also this capacity building program creates a connection with the needs Mr. Pisani was talking about before, Mayor Pisani was talking about before. And of course, these are also at the base of the research and also are needed for the institutions. So I want to thank you once again. We are really present in this context. You know that we are close to our territories. This community is an institutional community that is made of different people, a lot of people that every day, with their roles and skills, and also interdisciplinarity. This system allows us to combine different sectors, different people with different souls, and it allows to create also a communication, a dialogue that is necessary. So I want to thank you. I don't know if Matteo wants to conclude. Yes, once again, I want to thank everyone for being here, also remotely. I want to thank the speakers. I want to thank also the subsecretary, because the reason why we are here is you, and for the people that have been with us today. We can also share some moments outside, having a small lunch together, and we are really enthusiastic this work we're going to do together, and we are really happy of the moments we're going to share together in the future. Thank you. I wanted to say also something more. I want to thank Ana Luis, because you were and you are a point of reference for us, for all the work you have been doing during the years, and we wait for you always. Thank you.